Surf club, yeah, revolves around patrols and then competition, but a lot of it's the stories of the camaraderie.
It's always been a family-friendly club, and that's where it all started from when I first joined. It was all family.
Every Sunday, every summer, it's down the beach.
When we'd finish school, we'd always be down there, and Mum and Dad knew where my brother and I were.
I decided to wag Sunday school one time and ended up going down to surf club in the Nippers. That was my Sunday occupation from then on.
I used to love Sunday mornings to row to Brighton Beach, you know, in the early morning.
And we used to just walk down every Sunday morning, straight through the caravan park, through the bush that was there back then.
Some of the best days are out, even with you know, off Corrimal bombing on a bunch of clubbies. You're just in the, it's just like you're on the moon. You wouldn't know where you are, and it's just perfect out there.
As soon as the sun went down, it started getting dark, it was time to head off home.
Every school holidays, you'd always spend time down there from school. First thing you do is hit the beach. Be down there all day.
Our roots actually go back to probably 1909, 1910. They actually formed a group of concerned residents, but they never actually affiliated with Surf Life Saving Australia till 1911, which was Corrimal Ambulance and Surf Life Saving. When they first started, it was in a little tiny shed over the back of where the clubhouse is now, and then they progressed to like I think it was like a picnic shed, enclosed.
The first clubhouse was named after James King. On anniversary day, the 26th of January 1924, James King was drowned while competing in a surf carnival at Wollongong Beach. He disappeared under a number of large waves while returning with his patient in the belt race. Corrimal Surf Life Saving Club has always had a healthy contingent of members who are active in competition. In 1938, Corrimal recorded its first ever surf boat win. 2 years later, Corrimal had its first March Pass win. In this same year, George Critcher joined the club. He would go on to lead them to many more. It was his skylarking as a teenager that led George into Corrimal Surf Club.
We all used to swim up at Blue Divers. If you know where Blue Divers is, up there on Pioneer Road, top end of, we'd always swim in the Blue Divers, that was Taronji Creek. We went down there, swam all the way down from the bridge and down to the beach. And there's a couple of the blokes at the surf club, I can't remember who they were, but they said, "What are you kids doing here? Where did you come from?" I said, "We come from off the creek."
If you can swim down that far, you should join the surf club. And they said, "Well, how much is it?"
A shilling, 1 shilling, equivalent to 10 cents today. And all of us said, "We haven't got a shilling." But they paid our membership fee and we joined the club. I was doing my qualifying certificate when I had my serious illness, and I had to wait another 2 years before I did my bronze medallion. Most people today wouldn't know that Corrimal Beach was known as Taronji Beach in my days. The creek come down and they used to run right across the front of the clubhouse. Run right out the top corner up the northern end of the sand hills were in there, and that's where the creek used to run out. She'd break out every now and again. She'd break out in front of the clubhouse, depending on how much rain we got.
And although the geography has changed, Blue Divers Creek is still an important part of Corrimal Surf Club.
The creek to this day, the boat crews still get in there from time to time, and ski paddlers and board paddlers. And I remember the old bridge, the old footbridge, when we used to get the big king tides in the winter. and quite often the waves used to be lapping in underneath the bridge, pretty much where it is now today.
Residents have always lived near Blue Divers Creek, including Mr. Roebuck and his son Ron.
Ronnie Roebuck. He had a very freckled face. He had freckles all over him. We called him Fruitcake. That was his nickname, Fruitcake. His mum and dad owned the beach house just as you go into towards the camping area. And Mr. Roebuck built an island in the middle of his property and had canoes, and he used to hire them out. And he was the caretaker of the park trust. They were responsible for looking after the campers. That camping area was just trees, and you just go and camp in the bush. And all us young blokes at the surf club, we used to camp down the beach at Christmas, every Christmas. There was a group of blokes there, all coal miners, the Save Yourself Club. They drank 500 gallons of beer in 12 days. They had their own flag with Save Yourself on it. They'd get up in the morning and march over onto the beach at the top end there, where the camping area is now. And they'd go for a swim, and if you couldn't get back, you had to save yourself. That's how they got their name, Save Yourself Club. And they used to march over to Mrs. Roebuck's with their flag, and they'd march up in the veranda. They'd put a dance on it. Oh, we had a lot of fun.
Like back in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, they'd have, after the carnival, they'd have bands. Bands would come down and perform on the edge of the parkland there, and they used to go and have dance nights, and some of the miners' bands would play.
We're always a very social club, I think, Corrimal. We enjoy ourselves and don't take ourselves too seriously.
Old China, like when we had presentations, everything, and the beer was on, we used to put the cheese and bickies out. China brought down a cake of Sunlight soap and cut it up and mixed it in with the biscuits, with the cheese. During the war, they put a tank trap in there, big piles driven right out into the surf, right up to the mountain. Run right across through the camping area, through where the car park is now, across the creek, up past Blaker's place, back of the Taronji Creek. And that was, and then along the top of the tank trap, they had wooden boards where you could just walk out. So we didn't bother swimming out. We used to walk out and dive off the end of the tank trap and have a swim and catch a wave, come in and then go back out again out of the tank trap. You get a big sea and wash all the sand away and the barbed wire would come up. A lot of people wouldn't believe you that they had a tank trap. It went right up through Tarrawanna, right up to the mountain.
The club remained in competition during World War II, although its numbers declined. During the war, Corrimal was showing off its talents abroad, with J.H. Smith officiating at a carnival at Gaza Beach. After World War II, Corrimal Surf Lifesaving Club underwent its own big changes.
When they first started, it was in a little tiny shed over the back of where the clubhouse is now.
And they took over a shelter shed midway between the club and the creek now.
Some of the great achievements we had was building of the new surf club.
We built the clubhouse with our bare hands.
Old Ernie Callan was a big driving force.
Anybody knew Ernie, he was a cheeky devil. He was a master builder by trade, and he said to me one day, "How much money we got in the building fund, George?" I said, £450, Ern. He said, "We'll build a clubhouse with that." And within a fortnight, we went down and dug the foundations, which you couldn't do today. Didn't have a building approval or anything to build it. We just went down and dug the foundations, and then the following week we poured the concrete, put all the steel in and poured the concrete. And that was how that surf club started, with the building.
Some of them used to come down, you know, if they were working nights, they'd come down during the day, and if you were a day worker, you'd come down in the evening when you'd finish work, and it was like a bit of a roster.
We were working there one Sunday afternoon, and a chap by the name of Slenart was the chief health officer.
He used to live near the clubhouse and he was walking past there one day.
Glenn out come over, he says, "Hey Ernie," because he knew Ernie as a builder. He said, "I've been watching this building go up. You got any plans?" Of course I said, "No." He said, "We got no plans." He said, "Well, you said you better put some plans in." So Ernie said to me that afternoon, he said, "I better go home and draw some plans up."
They put the base of it down on sand, and the clubhouse was half built before we had a DNA into the council.
A few days later he said, "I got them plans drawn up, George. We'll go in and put them into the council." They walked in and a young whippersnapper, I'd call him, a young bloke about 21 or 22 behind the counter. And I went in and rolled the plan and just threw them onto the counter and said, "There's the plans of Corrimal Surf Club, mate." The bloke said, "I can't take those." He said, "Why can't you?" He said, "You got no block plan." I said, 1,000 acres of sand, son. And he said, "Get Mr. Slenard on the phone." So he got Slenard on, the young bloke got Slenard on. He said, "There's a man here with the plans for Corrimal Surf Club." He said, "We can't pass those." Slenard said to the young bloke, "For God's sake, stamp it, mate, that they have it finished before we pass it." A lot of stuff in that clubhouse you wouldn't know, but fell off the back of a truck. We'd ring up St George Lime and Cement, we'd want wall ties, we'd want so many bags of cement. And the chap, I knew the chap there, how did it come, but it never got paid for.
There was apparently trucks arriving down there at night dropping things off, and you know, the members would turn up and go, "Oh, where'd that come from?" And someone said, "Oh, we wanted this and we wanted that," and I asked someone and they come down and dropped that off, and you know, they had to pillage and scrounge, and you know, it's amazing how the clubhouse ever got built.
I hear so many stories about that, like George Pritchard and that, and my late father, my stepfather, Rock there, telling me a lot about those days of building the club.
We got the building up to first floor, and Arlen says, "I think we'll put another story on this." We had a building committee, but we made all the decisions. We finished the brickwork, and Nev Eady and late Billy Carr, they did the cupboards and in the kitchen, installed all the kitchen.
The building that we occupy today, that was opened in '59.
We had a great night that night. We opened it. Tom Maher from Bondi come down, and Reg Birch officially opened the clubhouse.
As a surf club, I think it's one of probably the biggest and one of the best on the coast anyway.
The other major addition to the Corrimal Surf Lifesaving Club is the boat shed.
We were working out how wide we tried to get it so we could have fit boats sideways, but we just didn't quite have room to do that. I organised a bricklayer from work. He was off on the comp at the time, so. And there used to be an old shelter shed on the west of the current boat shed, and we had nowhere to put the mortar, so the truck came and tipped it all over in the floor of the shelter shed, so nobody could use it. It was about 1 metre deep in mortar.
The members today can be very proud of that clubhouse. That clubhouse now looks beautiful.
And it's a symbol for us. Some place I've been going for 25 or 30 odd years really.
The club has always had a small but dedicated rotation of boat crews and sweeps. The first boat was purchased by the club in 1937.
Probably the first surf boat they ever got, it was actually blank. It was just called Corrimal.
Of course, the boat we had, it was a big old tub. It was bought from Collaroy Surf Club for a small fee. And old Pat, he was boat captain, and they bought that boat from Collaroy. And during the war, we decided to have another attempt to buy a boat, which we run street carnivals up the street, and we raised £480. That bought the surf boat that we named the Tarogi Star.
And Tarogi was actually spelt different to what it was. They actually had, it was TOWRODGI.
They'd won their first boat race with Cliff Carey, our club captain sweep, Joe Newbley, Davy James. It's really hard to think of going back that far, back to the early years. They won the boat race at Wollongong Carnival. The tuck stern boats come in 1944-45. Humphreys from Newcastle built them. Swansea Belmont and the Swansea Caves, they had Humphreys boats and they were doing exceptionally well with it. So we decided we'd have one of those. And old Dagger Wales wanted another double ender.
You can't compete in a bloody old whale boat, and that's what they were.
We wanted a tuck stern, so
If you buy the double ender, you can run it yourself.
the first tuck stern boat on the Illawarra branch was owned by Bellambi. Even though they never had a boat crew, they had a tuck stern boat, Bellambi. They never had boat crews. And then we got that boat from Roy Phillips.
We got the George Critcher tuck stern, and we started knocking off right. The first race we went in at Corrimal.
And that's the boat the boys won the Queen's Boat Carnival.
It was 1954, but it was at Bondi, and it was a massive storm sea. That was a real honey. I always liked a big sea, always. But too much can happen in a flat sea, you know. In the final, we had a plum draw. We were number 2 again, and number 4 was the alley. There's a little bit of a hole, and I said, well look, we're going to go. We'd cracked some good waves, but the sea was getting bigger all the time because the tide was going back. And I said, we'll go down to number 4, let them go if they can go. Well, most of them couldn't, they got swamped. We came down to number 4, and you wouldn't read about it. When I pulled, most people don't tell them this, the bloody wave hit us side on and knocked me over. I got out the boat, hanging onto the bloody oar, and then got pivoted back in. What a fluke. I didn't have to climb in. The mob on the beach told us we went out of sight for 5 seconds. You can't remember all this, but we won it.
It was an unofficial Australian championship.
Kevin Coleman, his brother Norm, Charlie Harriman, Dennis Hill, Joe Law.
Oh, and Corrimal, they were in the end, they built seats, you know, and they were jumping up and down that much they bloody collapsed into the sand. Oh dear, it was great. Yeah, that was something else.
They done very well with it. They won quite a number of races and marathons. They was unlucky when we went to Coolangatta to compete at the Australian in that year. All the boats were catching waves, but they'd all swinging to the right. Coleman catches a wave and damn, he swung to the left. He took him there. He would have won that race at Coolangatta. For a man with one eye, he's blind in one eye, and no doubt about him, he was a great sweep. We sure had some fun. We'd go and run a raffle, and in those days raffles weren't legal. And old Jim Smith, the sergeant of police, he'd get sick and tired of us coming. We'd go to the police station and get him to do a raffle. Tobacco was hard to get. We'd raffle packets of tobacco. We had it all worked out who was going to win the tobacco, because the winner ticket was up underneath the rim of the hat.
Corrimal Surf Club has always had a serious competition pedigree, not just in the boats, but in the traditional disciplines of R&R and march past.
We had the likes of Brian Gardner, he was a champion beach springer. He won 2 Australian titles, although not for Corrimal, one for North Wollongong and one for Redcliffe, I think it was.
Jimmy Finn was one of the greatest swimmers Corrimal's ever had. Alan Fitzgerald, in my opinion, was a great Fitzgerald. He won the Australian Championship in 1936-37 at Bondi. We were on the first ski race at any surf carnival on the south coast here, and the Corrimal blokes finished first, second and third. Cliff Carr was a club captain, a really great man, and I was paddling, swimming up and down the creek, and he said to me, "What are you doing? What are you swimming up and down the creek for?" I said, "I'm trying to make the R&R team." I'll never forget his words. He said, "Forget it, you'll never make it." He said, "Go and get half a dozen young blokes and do a bit of coaching." And that's how I got into coaching. Ronnie and Ray and few of the other young fellas. We formed a team in 1948-49.
I was first introduced to the club by Gil Grant. We met on the beach way back in 1943 when they used to ride their skis during the winter. I gained my first branch championship in 48-49 under the coaching of George Critcher in junior R&R.
It was a thrill of my life. 50-51 we won it again. Took the boys to the championships at Bondi Beach, the Australian Championships.
Really won a senior R&R championship in 54-55. And then that year I swam in the branch championships, finished 5th. The next year, that same year, I finished 3rd in the state and then went on to win the Australian Senior Surf Championship.
To my memory, he went to the left of the bunch and must have struck a bit of a rip because he turned the cams and he won it quite convincingly. Caught a beautiful wave, but to my memory, he went north.
The two Queenslanders led me around the buoys, followed by Gary Taylor. But what happened when they turned the buoys, all three of them went to the south. And I thought to myself, well, that's funny, why are they going to the south? So I decided to head in straight.
Cracked a beautiful wave. His brother Kent, nearly ran down the beach. Could have got you disqualified, Ron.
I said, get yourself out of here. I said, you get me DQ'd. And when I crossed the line, I was in first place. I got the shock of my life.
It was really, really something. Gee, I was proud for him.
One of the best swims I've ever seen at Manly was Wally Dare and Jimmy Finn, two of the great members of Corrimal. Finny drew the swim and Old Rock drew the belt. They joined two lines together. It was a great swim. And they won it on that morning, and in the elimination heat they won the round to go into the final. After the carnival was over, they missed out on winning the championship, but they've done very well for themselves. It was exceptionally well.
While such a good competitive team was forming with George and Ronnie, tragedy nearly struck in 1955.
On that day there was a heavy surf running at Coaldale, and in the next race was the novice surf, which was novice swimmers, and that anyone that had won that went on to senior surf races. They all got into trouble in a rip. Myself, Donnie Gray and Phil Lenham entered the water in belts. Donnie and I rescued people. Phil Lenham, to this day, in my opinion, has never rescued anyone, although he's got a rap in the paper about it. He tangled me up and Donnie up, but Donnie managed to get out of his belt. I could not get out of my belt because I couldn't pull the pin because it had already right around behind me, and I was being pounded by waves one after the other. They counted 10 in a row, thumping on the bar. I started to hear bells. In the meantime, quite a few of our members raced out and grabbed me and brought me back to the beach, and they placed me on the eave rocker. And anyone that's never been on the eave rocker, never get on it because it's one of the worst things you can get on. And the other worst thing about, my wife was sitting on the beach at the time and someone ran up and just said to her, "Oh, it's Ron." And she sort of panicked. And anyhow, after recovering, they took me to the clubhouse and I sat down that night and I said I wasn't going back. The next morning I got up and Nan said to me, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going down the beach." So I went down the beach and the boys all looked when I walked on the beach because they didn't expect me to be there. And they said, "What are you going to do, Ron?" I said, "Oh, I don't know." And I thought to myself, "Ron, if you don't go and dive in that surf and swim out, you're finished." So I went and dived in and swam out to the back and caught a wave back in and walked out, and I said, "Well, I'm okay now."
While regaining his confidence, Ron competed in the march past, in which he was just as successful.
The club's won 10, 1 silver and 1 gold in march past, so it's a magnificent record there.
we won about, 54 branch championships, 21 straight.
This competitive regime took its toll on another member.
One of the saddest days of my life was when Kenny Costello dropped dead on Bondi Beach during the March fast.
My son and Paul Shepherd worked on him and worked on him and worked on him, but when the helicopter came, they didn't have the defibrillator in it. It had been taken out for Kerry Packer a few weeks before, and they never replaced it.
Poor old Kenny. He was a great member. Over the years I've had some great times coaching teams. I love to coach. Had some great times, some wonderful trips away. First trip away was to Tasmania, where we finished third in the championships over there. The following year we went to Perth on the Indian Pacific to compete at the City Beach, Perth. We stopped in Kalgoorlie and all the boys raced across the pub.
Paul Mackin complained that he thought that the prices they were charging on the train was far too much and we'd be better off smuggling a slab of beer on. I said, right, because I drew the short straw, I had to smuggle it on. But
Could you come back with a carton of beer? No, the conductor says, I'll look after that for your son.
I got caught. They took it off me and they gave it back once we got to Western Australia. So it wasn't too bad going over because we didn't drink very much on the train going over. But we certainly give it a nudge on the way back.
We stayed in caravan parks and different places we booked into different accommodation, which was quite good.
I didn't realise until going on that train how vast Australia was. It really opened my eyes up.
We travelled everywhere, you know. Queensland, we'd hire hills of buses, go to Queensland, go right up there, 18-hour trip by bus. Travelled by coach and we travelled by plane.
And although they had an outstanding record with 54 branch championships, George was still waiting for that elusive Australian championship.
Corrimal had a team since 1936. We've only ever won one Australian championship.
George and his team finally clinched the gold at the Australian Championships 1992.
The 1991 we went back to Perth again and finished third in the Australian. And the following year we went to, they called it Collinara after Collaroy and Narrabeen. That's how they got the name Collinara. And we won the Australian at Collinara, as they called it.
We marched there to one of the worst bands I've ever marched to, a brass band who had this cymbal there thing that kept coming in with a twing, a twing, a twing, and you had to concentrate. And anyhow, we were waiting on the results, and a woman called George over and gave him sort of the nod, so we sort of knew something was on. When the result came out, we upset Freshwater, we upset everyone then, because we won this Australian March Past Championship.
And Chrissy Clayton always said to me, Chris said, have you ever won a championship, George? I'll buy a carton of beer. And Vic Vaccaro come back at the coach, little bus we used to go in. Vic says, Chrissy Clayton wants to see you down there, George. So we went down, Chris had 2 cartons of beer for me. We helped drink it anyway on the way home.
I remember us going across to the pub at Narrabeen after we won that, and George's first beer was out of a jug. He was actually sculling a beer out of a jug. I'd never seen that before.
George was still coaching the March Past team, and he was coaching, I think, up till he had the stroke.
From 1952 to 1995, I coached then. Then Bruce Shepherd took over as coach.
That year that he had the stroke, he marched at Corrimal, and he said to me, after he had the stroke, he said, "Ron," he said, "I had a blank spot when I was marching around that day." So evidently that was the sign, but it didn't hit him till 10th of July.
George Critcher has had an outstanding record at club, branch and national level.
I was club captain for a number of years, 4 years I think it was. And in 1956 I was elected club president, and I held a position for 15 years. I was club register for 40 years, and 42 years I coached the March Past team.
George Critcher, when I joined the club, was club president, and he, to me, was just the absolute master of the club. He ran the club, and he was just absolutely on top of everything. You know, he was just a master of his game, and I think Corrimal Surf Club owes a lot to the likes of George Critcher.
As well as abroad, Corrimal had a good reputation for holding its own carnivals. They held their first state championships in 1966-67.
We worked for a full week on that state championship. As a co-organiser, it was a hard job.
It was enormous, absolutely enormous. It was, and it was a very well-run state championships. If I remember correctly, people commented on how well it was run, and I think that Corrimal Surf Club was one of the first clubs, I think, to make actual money out of the state championship.
Hector McDonald, who was the superintendent of New South Wales, he reckoned it was the best championships he'd ever run. He used to come to Corrimal, and I'd often see him in the main street and we'd talk over things. And Heck said, "They were good championships, mate."
The ladies have always been a big part of Corrimal Surf Club.
When they first came into the club, the women, they were members of the Ladies Auxiliary.
Women come in the 50s. We had a ladies March Past team. We had girls who used to compete in beach events.
They weren't actually, officially members, although they paid a membership fee to the Ladies Auxiliary.
The boys with their girlfriends and that, they all got mixed up with the Ladies Auxiliary, and we all go and drive out. Often we'd go to a Sunday carnival at Bulli or Thurrool or North Wollongong. Then we started to go to Sydney at some of the carnivals. The girls would compete. One girl there, exceptionally girl, young Jill Nipper, she was a speedster. She could run. She won many events, Jill. Her and her 2 sisters, Barbara and Joy, they were all members of the Ladies Auxiliary, and they all went and competed. And a lot of our ladies did a lot of work during the building of that club. They'd come down and make afternoon tea, cups of tea, and they would...
Sandwiches and whatever, at carnivals they'd always be up there making the sandwiches for everyone, and or if there's a function on, providing food and that sort of thing.
In the off season, they'd be making lamingtons, and all us kids used to get down there and get in all the chocolate and the coconut, and they'd be everywhere, all through the hall.
You look at things that have changed over the years where with the committee, it used to be all men. Now one of our life members is a lady, Diane Marshall, first female life member. They're all strong women.
One of the big changes in the sport in more recent years is obviously has been the inception of women's crews and just how far those women's crews have come. Initially we all sort of dismissed the women as a bit of a novelty event, just another thing to hold up a carnival. But now the standard of the top ladies cruise is very good, and I'll have to hand it to some of the girls. They show a lot of courage in some difficult conditions, and it's quite inspiring really to see girls toughen it out in some tough conditions, and that's been a major change in the sport. Thrill seekers, as we called them, made the state final there and finished fourth.
Two mothers in the crew.
Narrowly beaten from a medal spot, but they were a great crew.
Gender roles aren't the only major changes to the culture of surf lifesaving. The once authoritarian nature has been loosened to broaden the appeal.
Even drilling for your bronze medallion, you had to march onto the beach R&R style, and thank goodness that's all gone out of it these days. It certainly didn't turn me on too much at the time, I can tell you. And like on patrol, you had to have your hat on and tied up securely, and virtually stand at attention half the time when you're on patrol.
The equipment that forms the backbone of saving lives has changed a lot over the years.
First surf ski was bought Corrimal Club Robinson skis from Balmain, and they cost you £1 a foot. £1 a foot.
How many feet were they?
About 18 foot. So we had 20 odd skis in that clubhouse.
Back in the early 70s, they had these real, they were called Malibus, but they were a lot skinnier, and they're a lot longer than the rescue boards we got now. They were very thick, and I remember there used to be, I think there was about 4 of them, and we gave them a hiding when the bombing was up. I think the reel was phased out in about the early to mid 90s. You know, boards become lighter, thinner, you know. And of course then along came the rubber ducky. That was a new piece of equipment, and not long after the rubber ducky really was the jet ski, and now we have quad bikes, and so they're all fun pieces of equipment that we never had back in the 70s.
Another piece of equipment which has become crucial to saving lives is the helicopter. For Corrimal Surf Club, it would also claim a life.
Losing Tommy was pretty bad for the club. Tom was actually filling in for another crewman, and they got a call to a pregnant lady who'd been in a bad car accident up near Barrel, and the weather was really bad. And they were in 2 minds whether to actually do the trip. The helicopter got into difficulties around the Parramatta River area, and the pilot at the time, the helicopter was going down, and the pilot at the time put it into the banks of the Parramatta River into the mud. I think it was parts of the rotor ripped through the fuselage, and yeah.
Yeah, it was a big loss. Tommy, done a lot of work. I didn't know him real well, I was only young at the time, but it was a big loss losing Tom like that.
It was my first year as club captain. That was pretty hard when Tom passed away. It was a big loss for the club. We tried to make a big push, and we did, with Bruce Shepherd as president. We fought for I don't know how many years. I think it was about 6 years, till we got some recognition.
Well, over the years, obviously the boats have gone from timber to fiberglass, and that's a dramatic change. The fiberglass boats have got buoyancy tanks in them, which help no end. There's pumps these days that get the water out and allow you to continue. In the old days, if you got a boat full on the way out, that was you had it, you were gone. As far as being able to get boats, it's always been a struggle. I remember Ron Bradley, I ran a 200 club, I think it was. I had to go to every shop in Corrimal every Saturday morning for 6 months, collecting $2 off every shop. And so we could buy that boat. The next boat, which was the Charlie Tapscott, myself and Terry Rigby organised. We had blue movie nights and all that sort of stuff down the surf club, and that's how we got that boat. Every boat that we've got, none have come easy. It's always been a lot of hard work by a few people. And then Peter Waring started getting boat crews together, and he was able to get Jeff Morrill to come over, and that was our first sweep. Peter, myself, Graham Smith and Dennis Lamb were the Corrimal A crew there.
Peter Wearing would then go on to sweep the 88-89 boat crew to a third place at the state titles.
Here at the Landry Boat Ramp, and on the eve of the George Bass Surf Boat Marathon, we're about to interview members of the participating Corrimal boat crew.
Coco was around, and then Coco took us on to sweep the George Bass, and the George Bass, we were all young guys, 19, 20-year-old, and we thought we'd take it on. We really didn't know what we were in for.
Mr. Neville Loveday, what do you think your chances are in the race?
Well, you must have known it was going to be chalk and cheese, because I think we're going to win it myself.
Yeah, chalk and cheese. And Mr. John Swan, how's your race nerves going?
Pretty nervous, but I got to be right pretty much.
And a shot of Swifty. The old kid, look at him go. Oh, Jesus, it'll take some doing in the marathon, there's no question of it. Look at that Vic. That's power if ever I've seen it. Newsflash. Here we are, we have a news flash. The recent news about the stroke for the Corrimal Bay crew and his problems with VD, and my police officer. Boys, there's John Swan, one of the backbone, the swords of the crew, gritting his teeth, splashing the water, and I'll break that bloody boat. Yates up the bow there, bludging as usual. Couldn't roll his way out of a wet part of the bag.
Skin was worn off our bums the first day, and it got more painful for the rest of the week.
There was about 3 wooden boats in it, all the rest were fiberglass. One Sydney crew after the first day sent up to Sydney and took the wooden boat back and brought back the fiberglass, because first and second days, northeasters bounce. We couldn't stay with them. One bloody crew from South Australia with big blades turned their blades on their motor and passed us not rowing. Bounce. But day 3 was a different story. It was dead flat, and it was into Narooma. And we got going, and we almost passed the leaders up by about 3 foot, and we got second place in the $200. Oh, I was proud of them that day, and I stood up on the back because we cleared off, let's say pissed off, cleared off from the rest, and I pulled the sweep all between the legs, and I'm standing up there with the clamp between the legs and arms out saying, Corrimal is brave, Corrimal is bold, Corrimal's going for the goal. And one of them said, you lose that bloody sweep or you'll be going.
I paddled skis when I was 14, then went and rode boats. It's very similar to what it is now when I joined. There was some ski paddlers like Terry Rigby was paddling skis, Phil Green, Swifty and Swanee were paddling skis at the time too. Most favourable thing I remember was the 96 Aussies making the final that year. the year young Robert Gatby was killed. Just some of the waves we went out and through. You know, we're going through. There was 6 in the heat, 2 went through and 4 were out. And making the final that year was a bit of a buzz.
The competition these days does the small clubs no favours whatsoever, like Corrimal.
And you got to put so much time into to get any benefit from it, and it makes it so much harder for people to just go and enjoy something that they really enjoy, that they like and love.
One crew who loved rowing as a team had the hopes and dreams of Corrimal Surf Club riding with them at the 2001 Australian Championships, including one of the 1981 George Bass rowers who would go on to be their sweep.
We were in a crew together, and then our sweep left us, and down come this bloke that was going to be our new sweep. So he's turned up, this bloke, and his hand was in this plaster all wrapped up, full up, and he goes, "Hi boys, I'm your new sweep." Anyway, we spent about half an hour trying to get off the bank because he couldn't sweep properly, he had one arm, and eventually that's how it started, and it was Swift. And but it went a lot better from there on in.
It was the only crew at the time. These guys still didn't have their bronze, I don't think, so we spent the majority of that season training for their bronze, and it wasn't till right near the end of the season, I think the branch championships may have even been the first carnival, was it? The guys weren't a big crew, so that they were fairly slight.
Pete did well and sort of trained us, made sure we did everything right in the surf, and those conditions at Kurrawa, they suited us more than anyone else. So yeah, that was our thing. We weren't the fastest, we were probably in the top 5, but when it came to surf, we were the number 1. And when you go to Kurrawa, as everyone knows, that's all you need to be. We wanted it more, I guess. We always, all 4 of us, which is, I think was, when I look back on it, we all wanted it. So there was no one sort of letting us down.
Underway in the under-21 boat race
I remember
now.
the gun going, we got in, we got away, there was a fairly solid shore break. I saw the shore break looming at us, and there was a smaller broken wave just to our left. And I steered it towards that smaller broken wave, and the boat lifted through that smaller one. And because the solid break was just behind that, the waves were coming pretty close together, and it just gave us enough lift to get over that shore break. And we then got out into the channel, and North Narrabeen were slightly in front of us, and they were in the lane to my right, and I saw them stopped. They hesitated, they could see an approaching set. I said to the boys,
if you give me everything, we've got this. And then, so you lifted, and we went, and I remember going into about 10 strokes into that lift, going through, starting to bounce over a few and starting to go through the danger zone. And I remember just mentally feeling, oh, I can't do this anymore, this is it. If we get hit, I'm finished. In my head, I'd had enough.
When we got out the back, I said, "Righto guys, we're out," and it appears like we're the only ones out.
And then we got to the can and we knew that no one else was out, and we're going, oh. I remember this one going to sea, he said to us, "Boys, you run great," he's always complimenting us and telling us we're doing good, and then he sort of said, "You might have swore," he said, "No, stuff it, you're rowing like Australian champions." And then we all just lifted and went,
but we've got to get back in. So just stick to your work, and we got around the cans and started to run home nicely.
But I knew we were going to get in, and for some reason, as far as I'm concerned, we had the best sweep in the country. Since then, I've recorded it's like a minute 40 we win by.
I just had a feeling that once we were on that wave, nothing was going to stop us.
It up, he'll call him back. You'll ride down with him. Up he goes on the chops, he gets elevation. Back they come, wonderful stuff, great camera work.
But I don't think it was, every sweep was having grief with them, they sort of little ones that would sort of give you a bit of a push on the right or a bit of a current. And this one peaked us nailed.
and make sure he doesn't go one way or another. Beautiful job. He's all about ready to set the bowman up. He says, no, stay down, stay down. There they are. Now he sends them back. They've come off the back of the wave very quickly.
When you look back on it, you really appreciate what you did, and you know, it's something that, you know, you'll tell your grandkids and your children about.
Certainly amazing feeling. I think it's every rower's dream to win the Australian title, and it was just, I think I said at the time, I could die a happy man, yeah. With this crew, the boats, our results in surf boat rowing have gradually been building and building, and I think, as Trav said, a small club. Over recent years, well, the last 10 to 15 years, we've made a lot of state finals and won an Australian title, and so. Whereas when we won the Australian title, people were asking us, where's Corrimal? I think now, when they're in a race and they draw Corrimal, they know they've got a race on their hands. So I think our boat crews are always highly regarded these days, which is great.
The Corrimal Sandpipers has always been there, fostering new Australian champions and the surf lifesavers of tomorrow.
The nippers started after 50s. Ronnie's coached us as nippers, has done very well with them, done quite well. I think some of me coaching must have rubbed off on someone.
The sandpiper was a little black and white bird that used to scurry around the sand, and that's where they got the black and white colour for the nippers.
It's good to have young kids there all the time. More young kids we have, and young girls, you know, looks like we may have a young girls crew too next year, so where there's girls, there's boys in there.
Should be good next year. We'll have 2 junior crews, and the seniors have probably dropped off a little bit with their commitments and things like that, but yeah, I think with the young fellas coming through, we should have under 23s and 2 under 19 crews, which would be great for the club. We could even be the envy of the coast, I think, with that sort of youth coming through, because it's very difficult these days, as you know, to get junior crews, especially. Okay.
And there's a lot more, they're feeding us a lot more kids, and it makes us a lot stronger. We seem to be having a better record of holding our kids these days, which is, you know, a great credit to people like the St George's and the Scots and everyone else that's involved. So without its members, we die.
We've done pretty well this year, I think. We've got a few bronze medallions to go through, and had a couple of young blokes joined in one a row, which is great.
It's probably the biggest we've been for a long time, the Corrimal Surf Club. We're very, very healthy at the moment, financially, members-wise, and it's all a good base of people too.
I've really enjoyed being in Corrimal Surf Club, and I hope my kids follow that path.
I joined it in '43, and I'm still there in 2010, so there's got to be something there.
Well, it was my life, you know, a thing I look forward to doing, and the friends you make. I can go anywhere in Australia and meet up with people that I know.
You know, it's been a terrific club to be in, and
What a wonderful, wonderful time I had. Good mates.
It's something to be proud of, isn't it? It's something that is very respected in the community.
It's more of a way of life for me, I'd imagine. I know. It's.
I think everyone feels the same sort of bond between members. No, it's not just members, it's between all surf club members.
And have so much fun and be with your friends. And the great thing about our club is everybody is like friends.
It's part of me. It's, you get so much out of it, like friendship. And you learn a lot of respect, and have a lot of respect for what people do, what they go through. The future of Corrimal Surf Club, who knows?
What we do know is the members of Corrimal Surf Club will continue to keep the beaches safe as they have been doing for 100 years.